But we all knew that the first version was going to be the version we ultimately went with.
But you needed to get that out of your system.
But yeah, I just wanted to cover all the bases, and it was a big risk and a very scary thing to do because it is my life. I understand that, like, to a lot of people, I'm not a real person, or it's easy to kind of just like see me as like a song or a picture or like a thing that kind of exists in their head, and they know what they know and that's it. But at the end of the day, these are people and relationships that have,
real impact.
Yeah. I'm a little I'm like tearing up, but it's real shit to me. So
it's real life.
It is real life, and spent a lot of time with each of those people, like learning and so.
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
What do I think of her?
Yes.
I don't think of her.
Goodbye. I'm off. Read about that in the New York fucking Post.
3435. Fuck me till the daylight. It means I want a 69 with you. Hello, everybody. My name is Jen Summers, local gossip.
And this is local artisan Matthew Lawson.
And you are listening to Ponytail Part 3, more affectionately titled as the official name of this series. We Forgive You, Ariana Grande, Part 3. Our deep dive and retrospective on the career and legacy of pop's smallest, most ponytailed up diva, and recently most embattled. We are here today after 2 parts. You can go back and you can listen to those over the last 2 weeks since we returned from summer break in August. We've done 1 episode about the dueling timelines of her and rumored boo Ethan Slater's careers. Then we did an episode last week to kind of chronicling her career origins. And this week we are going to be getting into really the like more modern era of her career, up through the middle of the 2010s. We're going to be going from 2015 all the way to the end of 2018 in this episode. And eventually we will get to the actual affair. But as we evolve this series, we are just finding so much worth talking about. I think this is the most links we've ever done in 1 episode, specifically today.
It's kind of crazy. We're literally going to be hitting part 4. And then, y'all, if you're not on the Patreon, we have a bonus episode about Ariana Grande's like famous diva moments from the beginning of her career. So
yes. And
go
we kind of break
that.
down those if you want. Yeah, go and pay us $5 on Patreon, or you can pay $8 to see our videos. And anyone on the $8 tier and above will get access to the video, not just the $8 tier. And we love and appreciate all of our patrons who keep making this podcast happen. Now, Matthew and I have, we've had a rough couple weeks. Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and our period of friendship has, temporarily stalled out while we have been diving into Baldur's Gate.
Building our team, building our party, exploring the depths.
And in the meantime, all my free time not dedicated to Baldur's Gate 3 has been dedicated to Ariana Grande. If you listen to any of these episodes and or any of our bonus episodes and or you talk to any of my roommates and or anyone in my actual life currently, Ariana Grande is basically all I have thought about now for about a month. So.
How many times have you listened to Dangerous Woman or any other albums?
I'm listening to Dangerous Woman a lot. And I also am listening to Sweetener a lot. I would say right now my definitive ranking of Ariana Grande albums is Sweetener, and then Dangerous Woman, depending on the mood, is tied with Sweetener and or in second place, and then Positions, and then Thank You Next. Love Thank You Next. Also, by the way, sorry, I forgot also, Yours Truly, I would say Yours Truly comes after Positions and before Thank You Next. And I've realized it's not that I don't like Thank You Next, but Thank You Next was a healing album for her. And it was also more of a mixtape. If you go back and you listen to it, you can tell that they made it rather quickly, which is not a bad thing by any means. But it doesn't have the staying power for me, despite the number of hits on it. Obviously, Thank You Next and 7 Rings were like huge songs. But the album is a little uneven, which is fine. She's put out so many good albums. But Sweetener is definitely like Jesus Christ. It's sad that it
Struck
didn't perform so
gold.
well. No, it really is sad that it didn't perform so well, because you can kind of tell a lot of the influence that the women that she looks up to in music have had on her on that album. And working with Pharrell, I mean, Pharrell is all over that album.
Of
Obviously,
course.
you can just hear it so clearly. But like, it's like songs like "The Light Is Coming to Take Back Everything the Darkness Stole." It's like,
Oh my God.
bitch,
It is so good.
what a good song. What a good album. Like, it is really forward thinking and it is really contemporary. Like, you can listen to that now and it feels like it came out pretty recently. But
God,
also,
how long ago did
mean,
it come out now?
It came out
So-
in like,
Is that 2019?
2019, I think.
Oh my God. I mean, anything before 2020 is
2018
decade
was
plus, it
Thank You
feels like.
Next.
Wow.
I know. So today we're going to be starting with a clip that you heard at the beginning of this episode from a interview that she gave in February 2019 on the Zach Sang Show. And it is her talking about the Thank You Next album, which had at that point just come out or was about to come out. And by the way, when I meant 2018 for Thank You Next, that was when she was working on the album. So
Yeah.
she has this quote there that you heard at the beginning, but we're going to say it here now again. This is on the Zach Sang Show. She goes, quote, speaking of why Thank You Next was such a hard song to put together, quote, "It's my life, and I understand that to a lot of people, I am not a real person, or it's easy to just kind of see me as a song or a picture or a thing that exists in their head, and they know what they know, and that's it. But at the end of the day, these are real relationships that have had an impact on me." And then speaking of the song Ghostin', which she wanted to take off the album, which you heard in that clip, she goes, quote, "It was a lot. It was too much, actually. I was literally begging Scooter to take it off. And he was like, 'You're thinking too hard now. This is special and you should share it with everybody.' And I was like, 'I'm just going to let go,' the singer says. And she then adds, quote, 'I wanted to take a couple things off the album, but I ended up keeping most of them.' And when Zach Sang asks what lyric in Ghosting connects to you the most, she says probably all of them. And what was the hardest to put in the song? And she says the second verse was really hard. And then goes on to say that basically every song on that album is a favorite of hers, except Ghostin' is the song
No,
that
she can't listen to that.
can't listen to. And just so everyone knows, the verse 2 of Ghostin' is, "Though I wish he were here instead, don't want that living in your head. He comes to visit me when I'm dreaming every now and then. And after all that we've been through, there's so much more. There's so much to look forward to. What was done and what was said, leave it all here in this bed with you." Obviously, that's about Mac Miller.
Yeah.
And we are going to actually go all the way through this episode, and we're going to be ending on the Mac Miller, the tragic passing of Mac Miller. So just to kind of give you a rough outline of where we're going with this, I wanted to start with that quote, and it will obviously make sense in context as we go. So let's get going.
Yeah,
So
let's get into it.
let's start in 2015. We have left Ariana off in 2014 after a really killer year. You know, like her first true big album has dropped. She has become a really like an international sensation relatively quickly. Obviously, Victorious was on for a long time, and Sam and Cat only lasted a year. You know, the Nickelodeon stuff is a much different Ariana Grande than the one that she kind of debuts with. And, you know, she has a few breakout singles and it is really off to the races. So we kind of left her at a career high in 2014 for her at that point. So in 2015, it is a lot of news, just standard gossip stuff that starts to barrage her as her profile rises. In March, she falls off a stage, which became a pretty viral clip. She talks about how after her Big Sean split early in 2015, there is a Hollywood Life source that says that she was leaning on Scream Queens star Lea Michele because they were obviously in Scream Queens together. I just included that to obviously signal that the Big Sean relationship that lasted very, very, very quickly, and to many was said to have been either put together by the studio and or like a friendship hookup that kind of evolved into a very brief relationship that fizzles out. And we get this story from TMZ just a few days after that Hollywood Life story on the 24th of April, quote, "Ariana Grande, Big Sean's $1 billion pussy lyric was the final straw." So after they break down, their relationship. There's a few different like gossip stories that kind of hit her all at once. Justin Bieber had kind of manhandled her on stage, and a lot of sources were saying that that was Big Sean's final straw, that like she had done that to like taunt him. Meanwhile, sources close to her camp allegedly say that his lyric in the song Stay Down is actually what broke them up in the end, or at least kind of pushed her over the edge. The lyric, just for everyone who doesn't know the song, goes, "I ain't even gonna lie, I got $1 million chick with $1 billion pussy. Every time I come, I swear to God, I feel like I'd be rich." Gross.
Didn't like Ariana's like grandmother reach out to her about this lyric?
Yeah.
This song?
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Also, TMZ says that, quote, "We're told Ariana felt humiliated because Sean was treating her like a piece of meat." And then again, TMZ says that the grandmother came to her and asked about the lyrics, which was especially embarrassing. Again, there was also plenty of tension. Sources on both sides said like, Big Sean was paying all the bills, but anyone who knows Big Sean's finances, just from understanding Big Sean's career, not that Big Sean doesn't have any money, but at this point, let's be real, Ariana was the power player in that relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sean also says to sources allegedly that he was mad Ariana didn't show up for his big House of Blues performance because she, quote, "selfishly cared more about her Grammys performance the following day," which is listen. If you scheduled a performance for the night before I was supposed to perform at the Grammys, babe, I'm going to the Grammys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like,
let's
what
be
is she
real.
supposed to do here?
And then, you know, the source hits back and says that Sean's actually the one that's self-absorbed. So this is all just speculation. We're going to keep going. So
Quite literally, he said, she said.
In June, Ariana, in the wake of just like so many different stories about her being a diva,
Like the diva tabloids really are ramping up like crazy
releases
at this point.
a iPad notes app manifesto. And it's important that it's iPad because you can tell from the dimensions of this note that I have linked there that it is coming on an iPad. That is the iPad UI. So
let's get into it.
Being empowered ... is not the same thing as being a bitch. Having something to say is not the same thing as having a bad attitude. What I meant when I said what I said about not being Sean's ex is that I am tired of living in a world where women are mostly referred to as a man's past, present, future property or possession. I do not belong to anyone but myself, and neither do you. I have clearly not been having the boy questions in my interviews lately because I have come to the realization that I am so much more to talk about. I'm currently making the best music I've ever made in my life. Just speaking of Dangerous Woman, having the best time of my life on tour with some of the greatest people I've ever known, working my ass off every single day, performing, creating for my babes, and getting the chance to meet and hug my babes all over the world every day. I come from a long bloodline of female activists. My Aunt Judy was the first Italian-American female president of the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. I think she would have been proud of me for speaking up about something that has been bothering me personally for so long. Gloria Steinem published an article in 1969 titled "After Black Power, Women's Liberation," and 46 years later, we're still not quite there yet. If a woman has a lot of sex, or any sex for that matter, she's a slut. If a man has sex, he's a stud, a boss, a king. If a woman even talks about sex openly, she is shamed. But if a man talks or raps freely about all the women, or more commonly bitches and hoes, how lovely, he's had, he is regaled. If a woman is seen with a friend with a penis, there is an immediate assumption of romance or sex, and she is labeled. If a man is seen with a woman, his status is elevated and celebrated. Aw, shit, he smashed it. I know y'all already know this, but the double standard and misogyny are still ever present. I can't wait to live in a world where people are not valued by who they are dating, married to, attached to, having sex with, or not, seen with, but by their value as an individual. I want the people reading this to know that they are more than enough on their own. I want the media to please help me with this. Please support each other. I'm saying this after literally 8 years of feeling like I constantly had to have a boy by my side. After being on my own for a few months, I am realizing that's just not the case. I have never felt present, grounded, and satisfied. I've never laughed harder and had more fun and enjoyed my life more. One more thought. My honeymoon diaries are my way of sharing absolutely as much as I can with my fans. That is something I have done since day one and never plan on changing. It is a safe environment for me to be myself and share funny, special, personal things with my fans and to laugh about silly things I've done and things I'm going through. I don't plan on monitoring or changing that because there are more eyes on me now than there were before. I love y'all with all my heart. You've accepted and celebrated me not only as an artist, but as a person since day one, and nothing will change that or change me. Quote, any woman who chooses to behave like a full human being should be warned that the armies of the status quo will treat her as something of a dirty joke. She will need her sisterhood. Gloria Steinem.
Well, I mean... Amen to that entire release.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a powerful thing.
Very aware.
Someone her age in this status, right, where she is sheltered and hasn't received really like proper schooling or like proper socialization in some time.
Right.
Obviously, remember that at this point, she's like barely, I think she's 21 in this point. So, like, I'm not saying this is like truly a game-changing feminist manifesto, nor is she going to like, you know, like break down feminist logic and usher in a new era by quoting Gloria Steinem. But I think it is especially prescient with the way that the media had been treating her the year before for her to have the sensibility to really see it for what it was, even in the midst of it. And at a time when it was still not quite very popular for women to say stuff like this in the media.
Oh, yeah.
Like the feminist girl boss machine had only really just started to spin up into full force. And so there wasn't like, there were a lot of articles that we will get into and talk about briefly about like how Ariana Grande become a feminist icon. Like there is that happening, but like
that late 2010s era specifically.
Culture, yeah, in mass culture in 2015, that was like a new thing. It wasn't the norm for people to like expect an essay about like how Taylor Swift wearing the color orange actually is like a big fuck you to all the men she's ever loved, right? Like that was like not quite there yet. So I think it's really interesting. And I mean, it also makes me sad just again to think that like to be this young and to have what I would perceive as a destabilized sense of self almost permanently because of being a child star and having like really hard time discovering like a real identity. You know, we see her kind of change who she is depending on who she's either dating or who she's hanging out with or who her producers are, which is something pop people do anyways. Obviously, you like have your eras, but you can literally see like when she is frequently collaborating with like Big Sean, for instance, or Victoria Monet, like her appearance is different than like in this more current era when she is like in London, you know, like moseying around with all of the like people in the theater scene there and on the cast of Wicked, right? Like she goes through this like extreme identity change every time like her life experiences.
I think you said this in part one where you're like, I think Ariana just really believes she is this person in this moment, or she believes is this personality. And like we talked about this in our bonus episode on Patreon just yesterday, but I remember one thing really early on when she was kind of having drama early in the 2012, 2013, was she was talking about how she had to really detach herself from the character of Kat from Sam and Cat and how she was very much identifying with that character and slowly had to realize, wait, the fans expect this, they expect this personality, like I have to change this now or else I'm going to just ruin everyone's expectations.
Yeah. And also I think what I'm getting at too is like, I'm not projecting onto Ariana like a mental health diagnosis, but I think that we can see, especially in the way that her body changes quite dramatically every time, you know, she's either in the public eye for a very long or goes through some sort of like public heartbreak or tragedy, as well as I will say, the like kind of like destabilized identity, you know, where it's like not really fixed. Like a lot of people will kind of stay somewhat the same throughout their life, you know, in terms of their personality. Most people don't experience like a complete dramatic personality change. And I think her personality is still there, but the person that she performs as changes quite frequently. And if you read a lot about like people with like a low sense of identity, like in sense of like who they are as like a fixed person, a lot of that can be tied to trauma and like extreme stress, which I think she would fit the criteria for at this point.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I think fame is traumatizing, whether or not we want to admit that. So we then jump to later that summer, in July. She tongues new BF Ricky Alvarez and an innocent donut. We're going to jump to the donut incident. We've talked about that extensively in our first episode. So a few days later, in the July 9th, the California police issue an inquiry over the donut licking incident. And then later that summer, Wendy Williams comes out with body shaming comments, which prompts the hashtag from Ariana's fans, quote, cancel Wendy Williams. Quote, the 51-year-old, I'm getting this from E! At the time, the 51-year-old talk show host found herself on the receiving end of rampant criticism after a few controversial comments about Ariana Grande. Quote, she's 21. She'll forever look 21. And I don't mean that in a good way. It's nice to look like younger than you are, but when you look too young and then you're short, she's only like 4'11", I don't look at her as like a woman, which is not a great way to discuss somebody.
No.
But I also think is indicative of like a prevalent culture of like dehumanizing, but also infantilizing Ariana.
Oh, I mean,
as well.
Infantilizing is
that
all
her fans
over
do,
Ariana's
that she
career.
does at times, and that the media does as well, in all different ways. So later that year, in November, she speaks out after being body shamed and compared to Ariel Winter on Twitter. So this is from People. This is all deleted now, but the screenshots are right there on People. So a commenter wrote, quote, curves are sexy, sticks aren't. And obviously Ari Nation rose and she responded, quote, side tweets, comment statements like this are not okay. Quote, about anyone. We live in a day and age where people make it impossible for women, men, anyone to embrace exactly how they are. Diversity is sexy. Loving yourself is sexy. You know what is not sexy? Misogyny, objectifying, labeling, comparing, and body shaming. Talking about people's bodies as if they're on display. Asking for your approval opinion. They are not. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate others. And she's kind of on a feminist kick this year because at the same time, the literal next day after, she is in an interview with 106 in LA, which is like a, Power 106. If you've lived in LA, you know Power 106. And they are pretty sexist to her. And she is just fed up throughout this interview. So I'm going to play this for everyone. And it's about 2 minutes, but it's pretty good to hear the whole thing. So.
If you could use makeup or your phone one last time, which one would you pick? Makeup or your phone?
Is this what you think girls have trouble choosing between?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this men assuming that that's what girls would have to choose between?
Now, this
not a question.
Can you really go anywhere without your cell phone?
Yes.
How long can you go without looking at Twitter?
Many hours. Many hours.
I don't believe it.
Absolutely. I have to, when I'm at a dinner table, I like to be present and talking.
Good quality.
Eye contact.
Ladies learn.
Yeah.
Listen and learn, ladies.
Boys learn.
Oh, excuse
Come
me.
on.
You see us on our phones? Nah, it's quiet for that.
I have made that
We got
mistake.
respect.
Come
We're on
on.
a date right now. We got our.
Have you seen the new
Boys and girls, we can all learn.
Have you seen the new emoji update?
Oh, hell yeah.
What's your favorite?
Great.
Which one you throwing around?
I love all the new variations of clouds.
Good stuff.
I love the little lion
Prescient.
and the
I didn't even notice. I'm over like
The middle
taco,
finger.
the middle finger,
Middle finger.
Yeah.
the Vulcan sign
The
is so
champagne
great.
bottle.
That's
The
good.
champagne bottle is so
Yeah.
cute too. I love the champagne bottle. The unicorn's great, obviously, of course.
Girls.
Yeah, boys. Many boys use the unicorn.
Well, boys.
You need a little brushing up on equality over here. Come on. Come on.
First men.
Ew.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
Okay.
You know? All right.
No, man.
You're right.
Who says the unicorn emoji isn't for men? Come on.
Is it? I've never
I
used the
said no.
unicorn emoji.
All right. I changed my mind. I don't want to hang out at Power in a second.
Exactly.
Things I'd like to change. I think just sort of judgment in general, like sort of weird and intolerance and meanness and double standards, misogyny, racism, sexism, all that shit.
Yeah.
There's lots we got to get started on.
We need it.
We do. We got work. to
That's
do.
what we need to
got
focus
work
on.
do.
Yeah.
That is what
Focus.
We have work to do.
Focus. We got
We need
work to do.
We'll start with you, though.
Me?
Yeah, we'll start with
There
you.
you
Wait,
are.
what?
We'll start with you. I'm very upset over this unicorn emoji.
Oh my god.
Ew, Blaze used the unicorn emoji. Fuck you.
No,
Fuck
literally,
you.
it does start with them like, get your shit together.
Oh my
awful.
God. So yeah, no. So like, again, 2015 is really defined by Ariana Grande kind of branding herself and solidifying herself to the public, at least, as like a voice for feminism in pop music. Now, again, like when we say things like that, just for like posterity, because
I
people
know.
are so quick to jump. Like,
Right.
we are not saying that Ariana Grande is a perfect feminist, but I think that it goes to show that she was really in the mode of like defensiveness about herself and having to constantly justify everything she does and having to justify all of her relationships and being a little bit like intolerant of the status quo in pop music journalism, right? Like, she is not the only person that has to deal with this. She's not the only person that has to like, I don't know, like endure these kinds of questions.
Well, we talked about this when they would compare to Miley and other,
Yeah.
female pop stars, where she's like, why do we have to compare? Also, why do we have to judge them so horribly and immediately like discriminate against them for the behaviors they exhibit?
And my point is like, she's not the only one to do this. And she's certainly not the only pop star to say something about this. But I think that she was like, and I will say this because this man has done quite a bit in terms of making people very, very successful and famous. I think Scooter also probably saw a very unique opportunity, like because of your brand and because of your fan base, we are in a position to kind of actually say something about this and it could pay off for us in the end, right? Like,
it's crazy to think about how Justin Bieber was being managed at the same time. Yeah. And this is kind of Justin's like bad boy era around 2014, 2015, where it was like he was getting in trouble, like drugs and like other kind of drama all in the tabloids. And it's really interesting to see how Scooter's managing Lily, both of those personas at the same time that feel very conflicting.
Yeah. And I think it's like, again, we see this in the dual like contradictions between Ariana and Justin. I think what the main difference is between the two is that Ariana, and I maintain this, and this is not a criticism of Ariana directly, but I do think that it is a criticism of the structure of pop music management, as well as just celebrity child culture anyways. Justin's family was poor. He was on welfare and his family were, involved in quote unquote criminal activities when he was born, allegedly. We talked about drugs and we talked about all this kind of stuff in our series.
Yeah, he was found by performing on the street for money.
Yeah, literally not passing judgment. You've heard our episodes about it. You know how we feel about this. But Justin came in with no support system, really no parental guidance because, his family was not equipped to understand what Hollywood was like. No money and desperate, right? Like he and his mom were living in Atlanta in Scooter Braun's condo. And they were 100% completely dependent on Scooter, right? They were in a country that they were not citizens of. And Justin was literally a child. And Ariana Grande was also a child when she was signed with Scooter. But I think the difference is with Ariana, her family has a lot of money, it sounds like, or at least has had
that military infrastructure money.
Power. And like, if they are not the upper class, they are at least like deeply entrenched upper middle class. Yeah. And they are a tight family unit. She has a extremely strong relationship with her brother. Her mother has been extremely involved in her career and has been very opinionated with Scooter and her about management stuff and her relationships, and has, according to Ariana, always been kind of a rock for her and a stabilizing force in her life. She says that like after writing Thank You Next in that Zach Sing interview, her mom was like so happy and was like, thank God, finally, everyone's finally listening to what I've been saying about all these fucking relationships of Ariana Grande's, right? Like, I think that is really the difference here. And it is something that I find to be really interesting as a contrast, right? That we can see how really like your class status going into fame can kind of define what fame is going to look like for you, or at least the tools you might have going into fame that
I still
other
think
people
about
are not afforded because, like, again, you're poor, working class, welfare.
No, I
You have
still
no
think
idea what
about
Hollywood
Justin
is.
Bieber and his mom talking about how like Scooter brought them a family they never had, like dinners every night, like
Yes.
that kind of comfort, things that like are truly priceless and
And
invaluable
Ariana
that
has
you
a
can't
family
get.
home. You know, her family had money. They like,
And she and her brother have been working since they were kids, like very geared towards the industry. It's a very different
she was in
scenario.
the kind of like child star training machine, and her mom was very involved in that. So when Scooter finally found them, she had already gone through Nickelodeon, right? Like she had already been media trained. She was
primed
kind
completely.
of like the boot camp stuff. Yeah. So we're going to go to 2016 now. And she has this big Billboard interview, which I do highly recommend everyone reading because it is pretty illuminating. And it's weird reading things from 2016 now because obviously 2016 is such a landmark year in American history, obviously.
Yeah.
We all know why.
Yeah, it's just a few months before everyone.
Yeah, but it's just weird going back to that time now because I'm like, oh my God. Like, I just can't see 2016 without like immediately knowing time and place, you know? So this is a big Billboard interview, and I'm only going to read a small snippet of it because, again, I just like it's not that important for us to go through the whole thing, but it is an illuminating read if you want to go through it all yourself. So this is halfway through the interview. It says Grande's challenge meaning in her career, is with her quote unquote brand. Like all female pop stars entering adulthood these days, she's under pressure to not only prove herself grown and sexy, but that she's had somehow lifting herself up and other women as she does it. And in her bid to be taken seriously, she has more to overcome than many of her peers. The world met her first as Cat Valentine, the adorably dopey character at the heart of the Nickelodeon teen sitcom. The second, Sam and Cat, ended in 2014. And she hasn't quite shaken off that childlike sheen. Her tiny stature, she's just 5 feet tall, love of Harry Potter. She describes Super Bunny, the mascot for Dangerous Woman, her in that mask.
Yeah, of course.
That persona is called Super Bunny, as, quote, my Patronus, and an all-animal themed Lolita meets S&M gear done exactly help. Neither did getting caught on a bakery security camera in 2015 licking pastries that weren't hers while declaring, I hate America. Quote, when you're playing a zany character on a kid's show, people don't want to vilify you as much, says Grande. They're a lot harder on pop artists. They're unafraid to hurt you. Now, going through 2016, again, it is a lot of just gossip this year. Her relationship turns over and she starts dating Mac Miller in September. In July, it comes out that the White House actually turned down a special Ariana Grande performance because of the donut licking incident. And do you know how people found out about this? Because this wasn't something the White House admitted to.
Oh.
WikiLeaks published thousands of hacked emails from the DNC, including one email thread revealing Ariana Grande had a proposed White House performance rejected because of the donut licking incident, according to Billboard.
That is so crazy. I mean, she did say, like, I hate America, so it's not shocking.
Yeah, she was literally in the WikiLeaks scandal. So, like I said, in September, Mac Miller kind of reveals that he and Ariana Grande have began dating. They have known each other since, I believe, 2012 at the earliest is when they started kind of collaborating together. And then obviously they had their breakout single, The Way, which really put both of them on the map in a big way. And they had maintained a friendship. And then, as Mac says, that evolved into something more. That same day that comes out, that People magazine interview, Ryan Seacrest has Ariana Grande on his show and starts asking like really probing questions about Mac Miller, and Ariana Grande like shuts it down completely. She's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about this with you, Mr. Ryan Seacrest. And
like, that's private.
Yeah, it's just like it's not your business, bitch. Like,
well, we talked about this in our Patreon, but Ariana like has a history of like very much being serious about like, do not ask me about my relationships or about like these other guys that I'm around in my space because it's not your business. Let's talk about the music instead.
And we also have this clip, which comes out around the same time. It comes out a few days later. And of course, we're going to now take a trip to the studio of one of our least favorite individuals here on Eating for Free.
I mean, one of the enemies.
Clip. Yeah, this is an ET clip because I couldn't find this exact clip on YouTube. So bear with me while you hear the ET music.
This is so crazy. I've never like had the relationship talk on a show before. It's just me so far.
Yeah.
You haven't
No
joined
pressure.
in.
Ariana Grande gets a little embarrassed talking about her new man on Wednesday's episode of The Ellen Show.
Mac Miller, right?
Oh my
And
God.
when you were here before,
Turns out the new couple performed together on Ellen's show years ago.
Just so let me come and explore, yeah.
Yeah.
he was with you.
We performed together on your show. We were babies.
And I asked you.
Wow, that's so.
I asked you something about him, and you said, "Oh, I'm his homie," and now he's living in your homie.
Not even funny.
There's that.
Right.
And that was very fun.
But you're with him, right? And you're happy and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Good. Okay.
She's like,
Good talk.
okay, anyways.
Ariana-
Like, she really does not want to talk about it. And Ellen keeps probing, and obviously, in hindsight, it's like Ellen doesn't really have like any sort of boundaries with anybody. So,
No.
Donald Trump wins on November 9th. Well, not on November 9th, but on November 9th, Ariana pleads after Donald Trump wins the election that her fans need to, quote, stick together. And
We're
then,
in this Arianators.
yeah, later in December, she talks about being objectified for being in music and being around fans, and says, quote, "I'm not a piece of meat." So that was 5 pages of notes. Now, from
Got a bit more.
2017 to 2018, we have 12 pages of notes.
This is where it starts to turn.
Yeah. Just I wanted to frame up for everybody like how much that was. That was like 5 pages. The next 12 pages is just 2 years. So just bear with us now. We're going to jump to 2017. So prior to this, I really debated how to talk about 2017. There were like a few things that happened earlier on in 2017 that that are funny, like objectively, but I just like felt weird going from like the funny stuff like directly into this other story that happens in 2017.
Yeah.
Very, very early fans of Eating for Free who heard our very first episode ever.
Oh my God.
I think like 300 people heard it before we deleted it because it was terrible. We did a list and a roundup of like all the times that celebrities like I can't even remember.
It's so cringe.
I can't
It's so
even
cringe.
remember,
When
like,
they ate for free, girl.
what it was. And one of the stories was Ariana Grande got turned into as Super Bunny, like the Super Bunny persona got turned into a Final Fantasy character in the mobile game Final Fantasy
my
Brave
God.
Exvius. If you remember this, do you remember this?
Barely.
Look, just Google Ariana
Barely.
Grande Final Fantasy. You don't have to describe it. Everyone else is doing that currently. If they're not in the car, if you're in the car, please don't Google it. But anyways, like there's like a few stuff like that happens because obviously Dangerous Woman comes out and then she embarks on the Dangerous Woman tour. So not much to talk about in 2017 in terms of gossip. There's like a few stuff about Mac Miller and her relationship, but like whenever Ariana is in like a committed relationship, a lot of the gossip about her is like, here's what Mac Miller and Ariana Grande do on date night. Like sources say Mac Miller's never been more in love. Like it's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
So on so I just
I know we gotta talk about it.
So on NPR in 2022, we're actually going to talk about the first this story, which by the way, you guys have actually heard us talk about in the last episode. If you remember the Scooter Braun quotes that we were kind of peppering in over the last episode about him being Batman, those
Could not get over that.
I know I can't. It's like the worst. We had so many listeners reach out and be like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe he called himself Batman." I was like, "Listen to me." I know. So on that NPR interview in 2022, he is asked, "What responsibility do you feel like you have to manage the trauma for your artists when they go through something devastating?" Braun says, "I feel like it's the responsibility of being there for someone. I don't look at it like, oh my God, I got to be here for my client. In that moment, I had to be there for my friend, and we stand next to each other, and I had to be support. And in turn, she was also support for me. After it happened, we all met up in Florida to kind of figure it out. And at first, it was cancel the tour. And I was adamant. I want to go back, and I just wanted to strike back at the terrorists. You know, I wanted to show them the strength. And it was unfair of me to ask Ariana to do that. She had just met some of these people in her meet and greet, you know, and she knew them. And these were kids and parents, and people were still in the hospital. It was just, I was angry. And a couple of days later, I'll never forget it. She texted me, "Hey, I've been thinking about it. I want to do that idea you had. I want to go back. I want to help them. I want to be who I am." So on May 22nd, 22 are killed in a explosion of a terrorist suicide bombing at the Manchester Arena on the Dangerous Woman tour. I'm getting this from CNN, but this is everywhere, obviously. Many sources were saying this, and also, you know, local news as well. Monday's attack, quote directly from CNN, Monday's attack outside an Ariana Grande concert at Manchester Arena killed at least 22 people, including children, and was carried out by a lone suspect carrying a bomb. The Manchester police said, quote, "The attacker, I can confirm, died at the arena. We believe that the attacker was carrying an improvised explosive device, which he detonated, causing this atrocity," said Chief Constable Ian Hopkins. While police said the suspect was acting alone, investigations are ongoing to establish if he was part of a network. As many as 400 police were deployed overnight, Hopkins said early Tuesday. He added that residents should expect to see more armed officers on the streets. It was confirmed, if confirmed as a terror incident, which it was not originally. It would be the deadliest attack on British soil since the 2005 London bombings, which killed 52 people. Now, from official sources, after the bombing, the suicide bomber detonated an IED, or an improvised explosive device, that contained triacetone tripoxyride and nuts and bolts, which acted as shrapnel when the actual bomb exploded. 14,000 people were in attendance at the concert, and the numbers changed about the number of injured over the course of about 3 to 4 years. Initially, 119 people, in addition to the 22 people, were initially reported as being the official number of injured. That later went up to 250. And then in 2018, after investigation and talks with psychologists, that number was amended to 800 people being injured to account for people who experienced intense psychological trauma from either family members dying, friends dying, watching people get, you know, blown up, etc., or just being at a terrorist event. I think what they were doing is they were not just looking at like the actual people that went to the hospital, but people who had injuries that they didn't report at a hospital, as well as people who sought post care through either the Manchester Fund, which was offering free counseling services for those who were affected by the bombing. And yeah, I mean, it was horrible. I remember being on the internet that day and
terrified of the possibility. Like, I always think about it.
I mean, and I think it definitely for a long time changed the way that people went to concerts.
Yeah,
just because it was like in everyone's minds. So a lot of things happen all at once after the Manchester bombing. And if I start crying during any of this, like, just know that it's fine. It's just a really sad thing to talk about. So
I know. If you need me to read anything, let me know.
No, it's fine. So the first thing that's really gross is Splash News and Backgrid obtained photos of Ariana being greeted by Mac Miller at the airport in Florida after disembarking from a private plane. She's greeted by friends and loved ones, and Splash News obtains these photos of her crying. She hasn't taken her makeup off literally from the concert, Matt.
Jesus
she's still in the makeup.
Ooh, that gave me chills. That gave me chills,
the eyelashes
honestly.
on and the makeup on and everything. And she literally, you can tell she's been crying. I'm not going to publish these photos anywhere. You can go look for them if you want to. But those photos being disseminated across the internet, a night of firestorm, right? Like, why are you hunting down this person who literally just like experienced a bombing?
Yeah, it's so disgusting. It's so exploitative.
So we are not going to publish those, but I'm going to read this e-news story because it kind of gives a little illustration about what's happening. So After the bombing, 3 of the victims have been identified as of May 23rd. When this story goes live with the photos. 3 of the victims have been identified, with the youngest being an 8-year-old girl. After the attack, Ariana tweeted that she felt broken, writing, "From the bottom of my heart, I am so, so sorry. I don't have words." And this is her first public statement about what had happened at the concert. Immediately after, she boarded a private plane with her mom, Joan, and her Beagle Chihuahua mix, Toulouse, and they returned to Boca Raton, Florida. A source says they met at the airport with Mac Miller, and that when Ariana got off the plane, Mac greeted her on the tarmac with a long hug, followed by a kiss. Mac also gave Ariana's mom a hug. It was a very emotional reunion, and they stood talking for a minute before getting into the car. Ariana looked exhausted and like she didn't get much sleep. She seemed like she just wanted to get home and be with her loved ones. Scooter Braun also issued a statement that Monday. And again, this is May 23rd, 2017. "Tonight, our hearts are broken. Words cannot express how sorrow for the victims and families harmed in this senseless attack. We mourn the lives of children and loved ones taken by this cowardly act. We are thankful for the senseless service tonight of Manchester's first responders who rushed towards danger to help save lives. We ask all of you to hold the families, victims, and all those affected in your hearts and prayers." Now, 3 days later, on the 26th, Ariana then pens an essay about the Manchester attack. And I'm getting this from E! News because the tweet that she tweeted this from is no longer up. So we have to go off of this transcription. So do you want to read this, Matt?
Yeah. "My heart's prayers and deepest condolences are with the victims of the Manchester attack and their loved ones. There is nothing I or anyone can do to take away the pain you are feeling or to make this better," she began. "However, I extend my hand and heart and everything I can possibly give to you and yours, should you want or need my help in any way. The only thing we can do now is choose how we let this affect us and how we live our lives from here on out. I am sorry for the pain and fear that you must be feeling and for the trauma that you, too, must be experiencing. We will never be able to understand why events like this take place. It is not in our nature, which is why we shouldn't recoil. We will not we will not quit or operate in fear. We will not let this divide us. We will not let hate win. I do not want to go to the rest of the year without being able to see and hold and uplift my fans the same way they continue to uplift me. Our response to this violence must be to come closer together, to help each other, to love more, to sing louder, and to live more kindly and generously than we did before. I'll be returning to the incredibly brave city of Manchester to spend time with my fans and to have a benefit concert in honor of and to raise money for the victims and their families. I want to thank my fellow musicians and friends for reaching out to be a part of our expression of love for Manchester. I will have details to share with you as soon as everything is confirmed. From the day we started putting the Dangerous Woman tour together, I said that this show, more than anything else, was intended to be a safe space for my fans, a place for them to escape, to celebrate, to heal, to feel safe, and to be themselves, to meet their friends they've made online, to express themselves. This will not change that. When you look to the audience at my shows, you will see a beautiful, diverse, pure, and happy crowd, thousands of people, incredibly different, all there for the same reason: music. Music is something that everyone on earth can share. Music is meant to heal us and to bring us together and to make us happy, so that this is what we will continue to do for us. We will continue in honor of the ones we lost, their loved ones, my fans, and all affected by this tragedy. They will be on my mind and in my heart every day, and I will think of them with everything I do for the rest of my life. Due to the tragic events in Manchester, the Dangerous Woman tour with Ariana Grande has been suspended until we can further assess the situation and pay our proper respects to those lost. That was Grande's management. They told E! News in a statement the following Wednesday. We ask at this time we will all continue to support the city of Manchester and all those families affected by this cowardice and senseless act of violence. Our way of life has once again been threatened, but we will overcome this together. I believe after signing off on this essay as well, Ariana shared a link to the crowdfunding campaign, I believe that Manchester Fund, which raised over $2 million, I think, even just at the time. So I think it's even more than that later on.
Yeah, it does go up to 2.5 of what is raised just on the crowdfunding campaign link, and that number goes up. So The Guardian, the day before she posts an essay about how Ariana Grande become an unlikely pop hero. We are not objects, we are queens. And I'm not going to read that because it is just like a a opinion essay. It is not obviously historical fact, but it is fact that around this time we start to see the emergence of what I would describe to be like the folk hero narrative about Ariana Grande, like this person who has suffered this incredible tragedy as an artist, something that most artists do never experience in their entire careers, and that she is not diminished by it, but instead empowered by it to give back and unite people together and to heal from it, like as a community. And I say community in the sense of like the city of Manchester itself, but as like a fan community as well.
Of course.
And I would say, and I think I say this as fact, like I would say as someone who has now studied Ariana Grande intensely, followed her career for a long time, reported on stuff that she has done as a journalist, I would say that 2017 is really when the tides start to turn for Ariana Grande. Yeah. I think that she would have had a much different career if the bombing had not happened. Now, to be very clear, you and I are we're not diminishing the bombing, nor are we downplaying her talent, her legacy, none of that. But it is undeniable that there was a long standing accusation against Ariana Grande that was sexist in nature. Truly, it was sexist and for many times unfounded, against her for being a diva, being difficult, just like misogyny at play. And this was a moment where the misogynists were not allowed to have the final say about Ariana Grande because, and I, it's disgusting to have to even like talk
it's disgusting because we live in a world like this, but, not because of Ariana or anybody else.
If you were to come against her, you're not just talking shit on Ariana Grande, you're talking shit on these victims, like it's not just about her anymore. And look at what she does in the aftermath of this, according to everyone else, right? Like according to everyone else, it's like, look at how she does, right? Like she is an incredible person who has like rallied around this city and really tried to fix it, like, and help and, do everything she can.
Like use her power,
some of like the
use her
biggest
platform.
Names in music together for a benefit concert. And she continues her tour and she spends time with all of the families and like people who literally lost loved ones who were at her meet and greets, who were there to see her. She graciously opens herself up to these victims' families and spends time with them. Even though she's also grieving, she's like, this is like the least I could do, right? And there's a bunch of photos that come out around this time that, again, like there's just so many, we literally can't get into all of them because we would spend the rest of the week talking about it. But like, people saying like there was one little girl who had to have like multiple surgeries from the injuries she sustained after the explosion went off. And luckily she survived, right? She recovered. But her father tweeted a photo of her with Ariana Grande in her hospital bed. And there were no photos around, like it was no paparazzi. It was not a photo op. Like the, cameras were down. This was something that he shared of his own volition, just to be clear. It wasn't like, here's Ariana Grande with the Splash News photographer, right? Like it wasn't like that. And he said that like, she was making her rounds and, his daughter kept asking after her surgeries, like, is Ariana okay? Is Ariana okay? And then Ariana shows up in her hotel room and it was like literally giving her the courage to keep, going through these surgeries. And it's like, Jesus Christ. How can you criticize her? Right? Like in this moment. So I think it is a very powerful thing, the way that she rises up to this. And I also think that it is a truly monumental turning point in her career, because I remember, and you remember, and most people I think who are in tune with pop culture will remember the way that the tides for Ariana Grande turned after the Manchester bombing, right? Like really, I think it was a sobering moment for people to kind of look back at the assumptions that they had of her and be like, maybe this was unfounded. Maybe the way that we are reacting to her is not based in reality, right? Because like, look at what she has done. So,
and I hate to say it too, but like it kind of leads into later with Mac Miller as well, where it's like the circumstances of her life and the people around her kind of like warrant people to actually extend their empathy to her as a person, like we talked about in the beginning of the show, where people really don't do that.
So we're going to get into this Forbes article now. It's kind of lengthy, and I'm just going to be synthesizing some of these stats in it because it really just kind of goes into what happens at this Manchester concert. It raises $9 million, and 50 countries get the live stream broadcast of One Love Manchester, and it's still up on YouTube as well. You can go back and you can watch it. It was beamed to 50 countries on 5 continents, and it was attended by, as a performance, people like Justin Bieber, Coldplay, Katy Perry, Miley Cyrus, Pharrell, Usher, Take That, Niall Horan, Little Mix, Robbie Williams, Black Eyed Peas, Marcus Mumford, Liam Gallagher, and others. And it raised more than $9 million during just the concert. BBC Worldwide said that it was broadcast in places like Brazil, the US, Germany, China, and Australia. And the event took place at the Emiratis Old Trafford Cricket Ground. And it started with a moment of silence for the victims. And then fans were specifically asked to remember both the Manchester attack after Ariana Grande's show 13 days ago and last night's attack in central London, in which another 7 people had died. Tickets for the concert sold out within 20 minutes of going on sale. They were priced at £40, about $51, and Ticketmaster waived the booking fees for the concert. So they didn't charge anything extra for the tickets. It was purely flat rate.
Thank God.
I mean, the proceeds, this gives the proceeds estimated at $3 million for tickets alone for the We Love Manchester Emergency Fund set up by the Manchester City Council in partnership with the British Red Cross to help victims and their families. Free tickets were set aside for the 14,200 people who were at Grande's Dangerous Woman concert at Manchester Arena on Monday, May 22nd, after the suicide bomb went off and killed 22 people. Many were children, and the youngest was 8 years old, as we said. Ticketmaster said more than 25,000 people applied for free tickets. All proceeds went to international distribution of TV rights. All proceeds from the international distribution of TV rights will also go towards the charity, and the total is raised now at $9 million, according to the Red Cross at the time of publishing. They said that in the stadium, emotions were very high, but the audience responded warmly to most of the guests. Scooter Braun, who manages both Grande and Bieber, told the crowd, quote, "This nation was challenged again last night, and you had a decision whether you were going to come out tonight, and you are here." They said fans broke down in tears and held up banners saying "For Our Angels" as Robbie Williams sang Angels. Grande then was joined by Miley Cyrus for a duet of Don't Dream It's Over. Liam Gallagher, the Manchester singer who came to fame in Oasis, obviously also performed. And then the Parswood High School Choir sung with Grande to My Everything, her 2014 single. And then soloist Natasha Seth, 12, broke into tears and was comforted on stage by Ariana. There were video messages from U2 and Sir Paul McCartney. And broadcasters included Freeform, ABC in the US, Channel 9 and UK TV, RAI, NBC Universal, Latino America, Tencent, Globostat, SVT, and then in places like Canada, Italy, Australia, and Belgium, multiple broadcasters screened the event. Grande's management said the show could, quote, "go ahead with greater purpose after recent events in the British capital." Quote, "Police had already urged fans attending the event to leave all bags at home and put additional security in place, including armed officers." One of the fans at the concert said to Guardian afterwards that it was a hard decision even this morning, but you have got to carry on.
Yeah, I can't even imagine going to that show just like emotionally after everything. But obviously that was kind of the point of all of it.
Can I tell you something dark that I saved in the notes because I wanted to, I guess, not surprise you with it, but it has more impact if you also, alongside the readers, don't know what I'm about to say.
Oh
next.
No, I'm scared.
So after One Love Manchester, a open letter, it's published in the Daily Mail, addressed directly to Ariana Grande. And do you know who wrote this open letter? Piers Morgan. And this is what I'm saying about the turning point in her career, because this, guys, like, I'm saying this like genuinely directly, like, this was a huge turning point in public sentiment about Ariana Grande. So this Open letter to Ariana in the Daily Mail, published by Piers Morgan, says, Dear Ariana, I'm so sorry I ever questioned your courage. Last night, you showed true grit and also why the cowards of ISIS will never win. Now, dear Ariana, to be honest, I didn't know much about you before the Manchester terror attack. Obviously, I knew you were a hugely popular young American pop star, but I wouldn't have been able to name a single one of your songs, nor recognize if you came up to me in the street and slapped me in the face.
My God.
Something you'd have been perfectly entitled to do after my scathing remarks about you 2 weeks ago when you flew straight home to Florida within hours of the bombing. I was very angry then. Angry at this wicked, senseless act of terrorism that took such a devastating toll on so many lives. Angry especially at the thought of all those poor young girls who'd been deliberately targeted, murdered, and maimed. Angry at the abject failure to prevent this obscene assassin from perpetrating this evil, despite myriad red flags about his radicalization. Angry at the old meaningless rhetoric being spouted by our politicians that we hear after every one of these attacks. So I was angry. Then I saw on TV footage of Her Majesty the Queen visiting the wounded in Manchester hospitals, and in my heightened state of indignant fury, I wondered, where the hell were you? Well, I knew where you were. Your high security mansion in Boca Raton. I just didn't understand why you left it to a 91-year-old pensioner to check if your wounded fans were okay.
Sorry. 91-year-old pensioner is the Queen of England.
Yes. Right. God bless the Queen in her kind heart, tweeted your friend Katy Perry, to which I replied, agreed, might be nice if Ariana Grande had decided to stay and do the same. People reacted with outrage to my criticism, believing it to be crass and insensitive, but I doubled down.
Wonder why.
If the Queen can visit the victims in the hospital, so can the star they paid to see. I expected her to stay, visit, and comfort her wounded fans and relatives of those who died. I believed those words then, and I believe them now. I still think it was wrong of you to flee the country so fast. I still think it would have been far better if you'd hung around to see your suffering fans first. To my hard, cynical journalist mind, you had selfishly deserted them in their hour of need and run away from your responsibilities. You're not a kid. You're 23, old enough to make your own decisions. Girl, fuck you.
This is like making me sick.
No, Matt.
That is some fucked up shit.
Matt.
She was
Matt.
Sorry, I know we all know the same
Matt.
feeling, but like she
Matt.
was a victim too.
Matt. Yes, I know you were shocked by what happened that night, but you weren't actually bombed, and many of your fans were. So I was angry with you, Ariana.
Bitch, what?
And I think the victims' families felt similar disappointment. In fact, I know they did because one of them told me so. Peter Mann, whose injured daughter Jaden suffered 2 fractured legs and shrapnel injuries, tweeted me after you returned this week to say she just came to Manchester Hospital to see Jaden. He enclosed a wonderful photo of you and his little girl laughing together. Great picture, I replied. Very glad Ariana is doing this. Thanks, he replied. All the parents supported what you said last week. She came and she was lovely. I felt self-righteously vindicated when I read this, but it was a short-lived sentiment. The truth is that you have made me eat my cynical words in quite spectacular fashion. You flew back to Manchester within 2 weeks of what must have been the worst day of your life. You went to the hospitals and sat with your wounded fans. You joked with them, did endless selfies, sang a few songs, and brought huge joy to so many shattered lives. You also had spent the past week planning a huge fundraising concert, persuading many of your pop superstar friends like Niall Horan, Katy Perry, and Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber to join you back on stage in the very city where the attack happened. And then, on the eve of the news show, there was another massive terror attack in Britain. Many more people were murdered and maimed in a horrific series of attacks in London. I'm sure you were traumatized by this news. Who wouldn't have been? You could have canceled the event and gone home. Nobody would have blamed you. Well, I might have done, but so what? Instead, you defiantly declared the show would go on. I watched the concert last night, and it was a staggeringly moving and inspired event. At the center of it all was you, Ariana Grande. My grandmother used to speak of the Blitz spirit whenever we spoke about her experiences during World War II when she was a young teenage girl. The official dictionary definition is stoicism and determination in a difficult or dangerous situation, especially as displayed by a group of people. You displayed that exact same spirit last night. You may appear to be just a sweet, pint-sized, baby-faced young woman, but by coming back to Manchester so soon, shrugging off the latest attack in London, standing on that stage, and performing with such raw emotion and power, you showed more guts, resilience, strength of character, and blitz spirit than every sniveling, pathetic ISIS coward. Jesus Christ. And you certainly showed a damn sight more compassion than I ever showed you. I wrote after the attack that the right reaction to what happened is not just the usual visuals, candles, poems, and hashtags, but rage. Enough rage to force real change in the way the authorities tackle this new enemy. Jesus Christ. I still feel that, but I think the time for pussyroading around this with rapidly expanding virus of terrorism is over. As the British Prime Minister Theresa May suggested yesterday, enough is enough. But last night I felt something else too. Surging sense of pride that within 2 weeks of a pop concert being bombed in my country, another bigger, better pop concert had taken place here. One that was attended in the same city by many of the same people who had been at the first concert, including some of the victims. They sang, they sobbed, they laughed, and they cheered. It was a joyous celebration of life and a wonderful tribute to those who were attacked. As Justin Bieber put it so perfectly, we love you and we honor you. So he says, Ariana, we never met, and I very much doubt I'll be on your dinner party schedule anytime soon. But I want you to know this. I seriously misjudged you. I had put you down as another self-obsessed millionaire pop star prepared to put her own safety before her fans. I was completely wrong. And then he just goes on to say, like, you're a hell of a gutsy young lady. I questioned your courage, yada, yada, yada.
Please stop.
But yeah, it's a lot.
It's just like, literally men in media are like, not only obviously hyper misogynist pigs, but like they are obsessed. They are obsessed with these people. They're obsessed with these celebrities that they claim to be so vapid and self-obsessed and rich.
But also the irony here is that like Ariana is not allowed to tweet her frustrations at the world and is expected to apologize immediately lest she lose brand deals or whatever, what have you. But men like Piers Morgan can look at somebody objectively doing the best they can to respond to a staggeringly traumatic event that had happened to them.
Also, nothing that she's expected to do on it. This is a pretty like rare situation that not many people have ever experienced.
He says like, you fled. Well, you know, you weren't even
as
bombed.
if she's like responsible for any of this.
No. So what I'm saying is
no
that
one's
like,
responsible anyway.
Piers Morgan can tweet all these like vitriolic, hateful things not rooted in reality, and then write an article in which he does not say, I'm sorry. He just says, I misjudged you and you're a gutsy young gal. And nothing happens to Piers Morgan's job. You know, like men are allowed to be
still
full
working
of
today.
contradictions and sexist and misogynistic. But God forbid Ariana say anything, right? But again, I think that this, even the Piers Morgan essay represents like a true turning point in her life and is like, really, I would say the two eras of her career are before Manchester and after Manchester. And I really hate to essentialize her down to that. But like whatever might happen next, like that is like
it's in the shadow of it.
Irrevocably different path that it has put her on. So Billboard reports in July that the families of Ariana Grande's bombing victims will each receive $324,000. This is in addition to funds they had already received cumulatively from the We Love Manchester Emergency Fund. And it was, you know, going towards hospital bills and just like relief. And they were also offered free counseling, stuff like that. The next month, that was in August, and then in September she closes the Dangerous Woman World Tour in Hong Kong, and during One Last Time, the One Love Manchester anthem, emotion overcame the singer. I'm getting this from Billboard. As she paused mid-song, fans exploded with love and support to carry her through, and once again during Somewhere Over the Rainbow, while the dancers stood holding hands, Ariana Grande started to cry and Hong Kong stood up to embrace her. She wrote then the day of that concert at night, she writes a goodbye to the Dangerous Woman tour. On Instagram, she says, I will miss you and this tour very much. Thank you for your energy, for celebrating us, each other, and yourselves at these shows each night, for giving life to our art, and for living the message of this tour every day. Thank you to everybody that attended one of these shows, and to everybody that couldn't but watched the videos religiously online and joined us from home. We felt your love too every night. I hope this made you feel something beautiful or has impacted your life in the way that it has ours. I'm going to miss the fuck out of you for a little while. You are very loved. So she then flies directly from this. And again, the folk hero aspect of this comes back in. She flies directly from Hong Kong to Charlottesville, where she performs at a benefit concert for the Charlottesville Fund. And this was given to the proceeds of which were given to the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation. This was after the Charlottesville riots and white nationalist uprising in Charlottesville. And for those of you who need a situational like time and place of that, this was shortly after news broke that counter protesters to the white nationalists, an SUV had driven through the crowd and murdered one and injured dozens. So she joined Pharrell Williams, Dave Matthews Band, Justin Timberlake, and others for the benefit concert in Charlottesville. Before performing, she gave a speech thanking everyone for coming out. I'm getting this directly from MTV, and said that she was proud to be a part of a generation that is adamant about creating change in the world. Quote, "Thank you guys so much for having me tonight. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming together. And I just wanted to say really quickly how proud I am to be a part of a generation that is so passionate about creating a change and for making things better. To be a part of a generation that won't be silent, that refuses to be silent. I'm so proud. So thank you. I love you. Keep using your voices and making this a safer place for each other. Let's celebrate each other and our differences. And let's have a good ass time tonight. Let's go." So 4 months after the Manchester bombing, Ariana Grande also then tweets a couple days later after the Las Vegas shooting. For those of you who remember the Las Vegas shooting, she tweeted out, quote, "My heart is breaking for Las Vegas. We need love, unity, peace, gun control, and for people to look at this and call it what it is, terrorism." Now, shortly after that, a article drops in Coveteur, which was it was like the interview took place like the day before or the day of, like right that morning before her final concert in Hong Kong. So Ariana has this Reebok brand partnership, and really she was not doing articles, like she was not doing interviews. She had not really started talking about it. This was her first time in an interview really kind of getting into the Manchester stuff. But the premise of this was not not about Manchester. It was about a Reebok brand partnership she was doing. And they were having this kind of like mini summit, basically just like what a typical 24 hours was like. And then also, you know, there was 20 plus journalists tailgating her all around the event. As they shuffled into a room for like a dance practice with Reebok for concert that night, she said to everyone, "I don't do a lot of things like this." And again, people will be like, wait, why was this how she started talking about Manchester? This was a brand deal she was doing. So she was probably required to do some sort of press about it, right? Like this was not something where she was like, I'll use this to start talking about it, right? It was just kind of like, she was kind of forced to do this brand deal interview format, which is why we're getting this in Coveteur. So she says, "I don't do a lot of things like this." And then they do a dance lesson. And she says that, you know, Grande is like so thankful for everyone for being there. And it's really sweet. And she says, quote, "I am really grateful. I love what I do. One of my favorite things about it is being able to have an impact on my friends' lives and to be there for them, to know that what I'm creating is helpful to them in some way, even if it's just making them feel empowered when they're getting ready in the morning, helping them through a tough heartbreak, or finding something they love about themselves. I think about them with everything I create. They've definitely been my inspiration this whole time on this tour. They keep it going. I wouldn't have been able to do that without their love, motivation, or inspiration." And then when asked about Manchester, she says, quote, "I don't think I've been through anything as traumatic as what we've been through. So this tour can be a lot. Calling it off and going home was not an option. The message of the show was too important for the crew and everyone involved. It's become more than a show for us. We are really grateful to be here and really grateful for this show. I think what I'm probably going to do after this tour is check in on my health." And then she says that she is, going to take some time off and just really focus on herself and heal. And the interviewer says that her confidence is palpable, but there's also an incredible kindness and vulnerability. And she ends this interview by saying, quote, "I appreciate people exactly how they are. There isn't a certain kind of beauty that I look for or appreciate, or one thing that is more beautiful than the other. I love people's uniqueness. I love the quirky, weird, and interesting different things about everybody. I think the most important thing is to have each other's backs. When you see something or hear something that's upsetting, or someone says something that's upsetting, even if it's not to you, just say something and be there and support each other. It's a scary thing. It's a hectic thing. It's a very real problem. Misogyny is ever present, and we want to be there to support one another. That's really it. It's about the sisterhood. There's no competing in that. We have to lift each other up, not try and claw each other down." Now, in 2018, we're going to skip now. Once again, it was a lot of like Mac Miller stuff throughout 2018. And then on May 9th, her and Mac Miller split. TMZ breaks the news. And the official copy says, "Ariana Grande and Mac Miller have called it quits on dating, but sources close to the two tell TMZ they will remain close friends. We're told Ariana and Mac quietly cut off their romantic relationship after their work schedules became too busy, but they've remained best friends since then. As always, our source says the couple love each other dearly and will continue to be the case, but again, just as close friends." Now, a lot of back and forth about this, but I believe that they collaborated on this statement together with TMZ because the source is stressing that it is still a friendship. They don't hate each other. There is love. It's just too busy, right? We will get into why I think that now, but just remember that I think that this was a collaboration. So about a week and a half later, Mac Miller, after the news breaks, gets arrested for a DUI. And just because of the nature of what happens this year, I'm not going to spend very much time talking about that.
Yeah.
Shortly after the DUI, everyone runs with the headline that she called their relationship toxic shortly after the arrest. And it is a message that she shares on Twitter. It has been deleted, but it was basically a response to people that were chastising her on Twitter for trying to basically say in some way, shape, or form that she is the reason that Mac Miller has relapsed on his sobriety, that she's choosing herself over Mac Miller, and how dare you, and look at what you've done to him. He's getting a DUI now. Okay.
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Matt,
it's just so upsetting.
What I was doing in 2018?
Yes. I know.
And you know that I will probably start crying at some point talking about this. So
I know.
How absurd that you minimize your female self-respect and female self-worth. This is her response to this. By saying someone should stay in a toxic relationship because he wrote an album about them, which, by the way, isn't the case. Just Cinderella is about me. And this is talking about Mac Miller's new album. I am not a babysitter or a mother, and no woman should feel that they need to be. I have cared for him and tried to support his sobriety and prayed for his balance for years, and always will, of course. But shaming and blaming women for a man's inability to keep his shit together is a very major problem. Let's please stop doing that. She also says that the relationship was at times hard or scary while he was dealing with the sobriety. And then shortly after the breakup on the 10th, released a message weeks prior saying that she had, can't wait to know and support you forever. And I'm so proud of you. But yeah, so shortly after this, a couple months later, in July, Mac opens up about their breakup and moving on. He appears on Beats One on Apple Music and talks to Ebro Darden about the breakup with Ariana Grande, and says of their relationship breaking down, and then also Pete Davidson coming into the picture about 2 weeks after the breakup, which, by the way, we're just going to kind of save that for next week.
Yeah, that's the whole other thing.
Yeah. So he talks about Pete Davidson and Grande getting engaged after 2 months. You know, that's the other thing is with this relationship thing, like the internet is wild, Miller says. I kind of knew, but not really. When asked if dealing with the intense scrutiny was stressful, Miller says he and Grande actually had a normal relationship and that he was in love with her. Life is stressful. So, of course, there were stressful times. It's not that unique, you know? Like, I was in love with somebody. We were together for 2 years. We worked through good times, bad times, stress, and everything else. And then it came to an end and we both moved on. And it's that simple, you know? He also says that he hasn't been checking up on himself on the internet after the breakup, but also that people have checked up on him. He says, like, I haven't been on the internet. So, you know, people have assumed that are you okay? Is everything okay? Because I was about to drop the album. And also, like, I don't know. It all just kind of seemed unimportant. The need to show people I was okay. Like, what is that? Where does that come from? Why? Why do we have this need for social media and the internet? He says that he and Grande have both moved on and is happy. He says, quote, it's strange, like the whole thing is a little strange, but it's not negative. It's just a part of something that's just going to continue to help make me who I am. You know, it's all positive energy. I'm happy for her and moving forward with her life, just as I am sure she is with me. As for the arrest, he says that, you know, the incident was a blessing in disguise. He says that after the arrest in LA, that he kind of had to really face the shit that he was doing with himself. What you don't understand is that I have lived a certain life for 10 years and faced almost no real consequence at all. I had no version of the story that didn't end up with me being fine. Yeah, I made a stupid mistake. I'm a human being, like drove home drunk, but it was the best thing that could have happened. I needed that. I needed to run into that light pole and literally like have the whole thing stop.
Oof. Oh yeah, that's fuck. It's really upsetting.
I know. I'm not going to include too many quotes from Eck in this because, like, again, I'm trying to get through this without crying because it's just like a lot, you know, like listeners, you know that I've been sober now for like 3.5 years and it's going on my 4th. And I won't blow up my spot, but I have been in relationships where I am not the only person who is an addict. And I have been in this position on both ends. You know, I have been the person that is falling apart and I have been the person taking care of somebody who is falling apart. And it really does make me sick to think about like just my regular life, you know, like being somebody taking care of somebody who is
already
an addict.
So hard. Like it's already so much work.
Yeah. Like the amount of times I went to bed crying and went to bed not knowing where this person was, the amount of times I didn't hear from someone and assumed that they had died or that they had crashed the car because they were drinking, the amount of fights and the sleepless nights and the stress and the hypervigilance. And then I was also fucking an addict. So I was also coming undone and trying to just keep my shit together. And I can't imagine being in Ariana Grande's position and thinking like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Right?
And then
like,
having like the world tell you what you're supposed to do, which are obviously not consistent, not
like
helpful, not realistic. A
year after the literal worst thing that has ever happened to you happens, the Manchester bombing, like a year after, you're still processing it. You're still grieving the fans that died, grieving the experience, dealing with the trauma. And then the whole world descends on you and is like, you're the reason why this man is falling apart. Like, it's your fault. You should have been stronger for him. Like, when you can probably barely be strong enough for yourself. I mean, like, for those of you who have been in a similar position, you know that you don't need other people to tell you that it is your fault that somebody is falling apart. You don't need other people to tell you that because you tell yourself that every single day that you wake up all day long. Why are you not strong enough to help them? Why are you not good enough for them to get better? Why are you not able to fix them? Why are you not able to, you know, make it better for anyone, including yourself? Like, am I not enough for you? Do you not love me enough? Why don't you love me enough to change? Why don't you love yourself enough to change? When are you going to stop hurting me? You know, it's endless. You don't need a million people on the internet telling you that. You know, that is something you tell yourself every day. So just to see a lot of what Mac was saying in his final months is just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
especially when you're an addict, you just think about all the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, you know, and like,
yeah,
he had this epiphany about the way his life was going. And he had, from just reading these interviews, a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just, it was like he was looking down at his life from the top, you know, and kind of seeing what was happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had the foresight to call it like an intervention of the universe to have him crash and force him to kind of reckon with his behavior.
His rock bottom moment.
But as I think we learn a lot, just sometimes it is not enough. And about a month after that interview goes live, he is pronounced dead of an overdose. And his family says he was, quote, a bright young light in this world. And this is from September 7th, 2018. I'm getting this from People, but it was reported everywhere. People reported at the time that he was pronounced dead at 11:51 a.m. in Studio City, California, by the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner Coroner. The cause of death was yet to be determined at the time, but a source tells People the rapper had gone into cardiac arrest after appearing to suffer a drug overdose. His family said in a statement, Malcolm McCormick, known and adored by fans as Mac Miller, has tragically passed away at the age of 26. He was a bright light in this world for his family, friends, and fans. Thank you for your prayers. Please respect our privacy. There are no further details as to the cause of his death at this time. The same day, Ariana then turns off her Instagram comments, which is noted by various journalists. She disables the comments after his fans, as well as just people across the internet, basically flood her with thousands of likes and comments and tweets saying that she was the cause of Mac Miller's death, that, you know, she had broken up with him and it was his fault. I mean, her fault that he had died.
That is like so foul. That is so traumatizing to experience.
Yeah. It's really bad. It's really fucked up. A few days later, or really the same day, a source says that she was devastated and said that although the two ended their relationship, she shared a deep connection with Mac and wanted nothing but the best for him, according to a source that spoke with ET, and said that she was very upset. So friends of Mac Miller's then start talking like very rapidly about this. The Shane Powers show, Powers opens up about his and Mac Miller's friendship, and said that he had a lot of good stuff going on and that Ariana and him were together. They were very much in love. And I have to say, she was incredible when he was first sobering up. She was a fucking G to him. There could not have been anybody more supportive of him being sober than Ariana. He continues that, quote, I saw that. I was around it. I took phone calls from her saying, how do I help? What do I do? This little girl was unbelievably involved and helpful to him being healthy, because whether he's an addict or not, the way that Mac partied was not healthy. There was no one in his life more ready to go to the wall for him when it came to him being sober. And she was an unbelievably stabilizing force in his life. And she was deeply helpful and effective in keeping Mac sober and helping him get sober. And she was all about him getting healthy, period, in this area of his life. And this is really in response to the internet outrage that she has somehow killed Mac Miller by,
like, let's set the fucking record straight. Like, she was truly out here doing the best that she could.
Yes. And I think like no one should have been put in the position to reveal the details of his sobriety after the fact, but like,
I get why though.
I get why. So a few days after that goes up, Ariana Grande breaks her silence about his death with an Instagram post. I get this from Variety, but this was everywhere. It's just, again, this doesn't exist anymore. So
yeah, she's
we're getting this
everything 100 times over.
I adored you from the day I met you when I was 19, and I always will. I can't believe you aren't here anymore. I really can't wrap my head around it. We talked about this so many times. I'm so mad. I'm so sad. I don't know what to do. You were my dearest friend for so long above anything else. I'm so sorry I couldn't fix or take away your pain. I really wanted to. The kindest, sweetest soul with demons he never deserved. I hope you're okay now. Rest. Jesus Christ.
Ugh, it's like getting emotional just thinking about it. Like,
I know. I'm like trying not
it's
to
a lot.
keep crying about it.
Yeah.
So Ariana Grande and Pete break up pretty soon afterwards. The sources tell TMZ and basically anyone who will listen that Mac's death was kind of the turning point. They say that Ariana really just was like, what the fuck is going on with my life? Like, what am I doing? Why am I engaged to Pete Davidson? And called it off pretty quickly. Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber's manager, Scooter Braun, then talked to Variety about, quote, tough times and big payoffs. And we're going to end with this and then an interview from Ariana at Beats One shortly before Mac's death. And we will end it there. But in this Variety article, he says, our company privately owns a bunch of other management companies, which we've never announced. And there's been speculation, but I watched this other manager get fired and I saw him defend himself instantly and put out a lot of truths. And I watched the artist see those truths, not want to deal with it, and then forever hate that manager. And with Ariana, I could have said a lot of stuff. And this was talking about when Ariana Grande fired him in 2016. And then forever hate that manager. And with Ariana, I could have said a lot of stuff. And in fact, my team wanted me to, but I was like, we're not going to say a word. And this is going to come back around. They were like, never take her back. But I said, let's stay quiet and let our truth be our actions. And when shitty boyfriends leave and then everyone laughs, he's talking about the dancer, by the way, that she saw was with TMZ. She starts to see the light on some stuff. And one day I got a phone call and she said, can I see you tomorrow? And I said, no, I'm busy. Actually, I couldn't. So I said, I see you on Thursday. And I went over there and we had a very honest conversation. It made me a better manager, number one. It allowed me to know that I can be fired. I had never been fired before. It made me know that as much as you give to people in a service business, we do a lot of asset business, but this is a service business. You can never expect anyone to reciprocate. You have to do it for the right reasons. And if you're screwed over in the end, so be it, and hope that you had a hell of a ride along the way. One of my mentors said, every artist will break your heart. And I used to fight that. Now I realize this situation will break your heart because it becomes so personal. And 90% of your job of the time is keeping stuff out of the artist's sight to keep the pressure off of them. So now how could they ever appreciate you as much as you think they should? Because they don't even know about that stuff. And also it made me and her really tight because now when we get into those fights and she's coming at me, I just kind of go, whoa, do you want to go back to where we were? And then it calms down. And that relationship we had from being fired to getting back together really gave us the strength for what we never imagined would come that following year with the May 2017 terrorist attack outside the Manchester concert. And I wanted to start here for setting up next week's episode to really kind of position the fact that like looming over Manchester, looming over Mac Miller, looming over Ariana and Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber and so many other people is Scooter Braun, is this man that has really orchestrated a lot of the response and ideology and persona and brand and accomplishments. And I'm not attributing all of these people's success exclusively to Scooter Braun, right? Like it takes.
But he is at the center of it all.
Yes,
really.
And I think it's interesting to kind of hear his perspective on that, even though he is clearly a villain. But especially so soon after Mac Miller's death, to kind of hear him pretty blatantly say that like Ariana's love life is like a frequent stressor on her professional life, and I just think that that is something to keep in mind for when we get to next week's episode. So I'm going to end now with one of the first times that she really genuinely opens up on camera about Manchester. This is a really sad interview and we will do our outro afterwards, but I want to play this in entirety because I think that I want her to speak this for herself. So this is at Beats One with Ebro in August 2018, shortly before Mac's death.
You that song is meaningful to you in some deep ways. Yeah. You've been through not only personal stuff with the relationship, but what took place in Manchester also was heavy stuff for the world. You haven't shied away of trying to heal and contribute your spirit and soul to helping everybody keep their heads up and stay strong. While we were playing that song, you got pretty emotional. and I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it.
It sounds like so hard. Whatever you want.
You were
So sorry. I'm like literally sorry.
I was saying that you went and had sat and had therapy and have really been working through recovering from what took place in Manchester with your fans, with your family, with yourself. And was that song that important to put out some of that energy and let people know that we're all working to get well?
Yeah, you know, it's just about like just being there for each other and like helping each other through scary times and like anxiety and, you know, some dark shit out there, man.
It is.
So we just have to like be there for each other as much as we can, because you never fucking know, you know. So just wanted to do something to make people feel good and less alone. It's not just about, you know, that, you know, it's also about personal demons and anxiety and more intimate tragedies as well, you know. Mental health is so important. People don't pay enough mind to it because we have things to do. We have schedules, we have jobs, we have, you know, kids and places to be and pressure to fit in and Instagram stories, whatever you're trying to put on facade, trying to keep up. People don't pay attention to like what's happening inside. You know, I'm so sorry. I'm falling apart. Yeah, that's why I felt like it was important. I just wanted to give people a hug musically. And I feel like the lyrics can be kind of corny when I talk about like wanting to hug you and stuff, but like I really do. Because it's just like, I don't know. People gotta be nicer. You see this shit on the news, it affects you, but not the same way. You feel bad, you tweet it, you post a picture, you send your condolences, you say something, and then you move on, you know. But like Christmas comes and you're like thinking about it, you know, it's like, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, it's like people are permanently affected by this shit, and it's just like perspective. It like changes everything, changes your life quite a bit, you know.
Jesus Christ! Sorry, Matt, you can't see. Matt and I are like,
no, I was because I like have the tissues. Like, Jesus Christ!
I wanted to end with that because I think that it is a sobering reminder and really positions where Ariana Grande was still emotionally about the Manchester attack a year later, like right before Mac died. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people have a hard time, like she says in the very beginning of this episode, which we started with, that people have a hard time thinking of her like a real person and thinking of her like just like not just something that's in their phones. And you can see how raw and vulnerable she was. And then the like just another unbelievable thing happens to her when she is still that easily brought to tears by what had happened.
She's like only just able to really talk about it.
And still, you know. And I don't know, like, just like the Justin Bieber stuff, I wasn't necessarily a fan of Justin Bieber, and I have been a long time fan of Ariana Grande, as much as we have joked about her on this podcast. But like, it's weird to go into something like this series and have a very specific idea of somebody in your head.
Right.
And then really have to like reckon with that idea and like, as we did with Justin, like humanize the idea of someone in your brain, you know, for as much as we can like fault other people and criticize justifiably. It's like, it's just like hard sometimes, I think, for people to think that beyond everything, like Ariana Grande was 23, right? And this was like what she was living through, you know?
Yeah, Mac was
like
Mac was 26 when he passed away. Like, we're 28 now. Like, I can't even. Insane to
I was
imagine.
a fucking wreck at 23. You know, I was a fucking drug addicted wreck. I can't imagine being who I was at 23 with this kind of pressure already, with this kind of scrutiny, with this kind of like just extreme shit on you all the time. Like literal hundreds of people's lives being pinned to you, you know, like the way people live and die is your fault at this age, at this public of a stage. Like, I don't know. This was, I think, the toughest episode of the series yet. Last week was dark for its own reasons, but this one, like, I thought Child Star Hell was bad, man, but this is like something else.
I don't think we've ever like actually cried on the pod before.
I have, I think, a few times.
Yeah, but like both, like, it's just in a very specific way.
That interview is hard. That is like, I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole thing for preparation for this. But yeah, I highly suggest you do. If you're listening, again, all the links are in our description. And I really hope that this series has been illuminating for people. I feel like I've had so many more people than usual really reach out to us about what we've been doing the last couple weeks, which makes us feel good, obviously, because we have put an unbelievable amount of time into this series.
No, really, everyone. Joan has done such a great job at finding not only an insane amount of sources, but creating a narrative that I think has not been done at this scale before, at least I've seen. And it's really impressive work.
Thank
you. It's changed a lot of my views as well. Like, I'm on the journey with a lot of y'all as well. Even though I'm doing the work and reading the notes and finding sources, you know, even for other episodes and such, like, you're really the powerhouse here. And I'm really impressed by what you've done.
You. But yeah, I mean, we not only forgive Ariana Grande, but we appreciate Ariana Grande too. And again, like,
we are inspired by Ariana Grande.
If you haven't heard Sweetener in a while, guys, like, I just really suggest you go listen to Sweetener. Like,
after all this, stream Sweetener.
Stream Sweetener. Okay. Well, I have nothing else to promo. And we really are just working on this podcast now. So
I can't even imagine part 4 is going to be the last, but what do you think?
We'll try.
We'll see.
I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. I really am going to do my best.
We still have more diva moments coming up on the Patreon as well. And some other really interesting insights. There's this like blog post that is insane from someone who met Ariana Grande with their kids kind of while she was famous, but before she was really famous, and then meeting her after an MTV award contest that I think illuminates so much about just the industry, like how superstardom really changes not only a celebrity, but also like the experience of the fans around her. So really get on our Patreon, guys. We have a lot of good stuff coming there.
And then beyond that, I also want to say that you can subscribe again on Patreon. It really, really helps us, y'all, when you do. This is like our full-time job now, specifically also mine. So it really does help when you guys support. We give you guys so much content on Patreon. I am surprising Matthew in this particular moment with a job today.
Excuse me?
Like a job that I need you to do this weekend.
Okay, sure.
Which is I need you to go on Netflix.com. I believe it's Netflix.
Oh my God.
And I need you to watch Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Oh my God.
And we're gonna review.
No, I think it's an Amazon movie,
Royal
but
Blue.
I was wondering. I was like waiting for you to bring it up.
You were waiting
honestly.
for me?
I think it's an Amazon movie.
Okay.
But yeah, well, oh my God. I mean, that clip of Uma Thurman with that accent, I was like, shit, we really do have to watch this, don't we?
And to the transgender Mississippi, to the teenager, and to the transgender teenager in Mississippi voting for the very first time.
Also to see our like first ever instance of like pop crave propaganda come through. That's going to be really fascinating.
So that, and then also if you guys can leave a 5-star review on Apple Music,
please,
or Apple Podcasts,
a written
Spotify,
review would be fantastic.
It's amazing. It helps us out a lot.
Even just like an emoji or something, a cloud emoji for right now, if you will.
If you've been wondering how to get your loved ones into eating for free, I feel like this is the perfect series to get them started. So send it to all your friends and loved ones, and we will see you guys next week. I love you very much. 3435 means I want a 69 with you.
On 3,
Bye.
2, 1.
Goodbye. You've been listening to Eating for Free, which is written and hosted by myself, Joan Summers, and Matthew Lawson, and produced by Ashlyn Thomas and myself, with music from our friend Pluto. For more information about this episode and our show, go to eatingforfree.com. And if you want weekly bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/eatingforfree, which helps support this show and keep it going. We've also got merch at eatingforfree.com/merch.